Oh, how did I get in this mess? I'll tell you how I got in this mess. um, I met Kent Bauer. He's an attorney, and he's a little older than me, 12 years older, and I did not. I wanted to be respected. So I was a single mom with really very little education. Tried nursing, just wasn't for me. Loved drawing, loved fine art, just loved it. Everything about it, conceptual and philosophy. But I had to make a living, and think about that. So I got tested by the DRS, and I had wanted to be a scientific illustrator, and I guess I tested that I could do it. So they offered to help pay for my education. They were paying my tuition and my supplies, which was awesome. So I went and I applied to VCU, got in the art school. My granddad was going to go ahead and pay my apartment while I was in school to be a scientific illustrator. Everything seemed good. I had trouble with math, but people told me, they said, well, now that you're 27, it should be no problem. You're an adult. You'll do fine in math. Everything will be good. And so I got in the CA department. I applied after that first year, and they accepted me. That was a lot of work. I did some extra work and things like that, and they accepted me, so I thought everything was good. And I took my sciences. I took my botany and zoology with a Harvard professor, and I did okay. I think I got a C. Zoology was tough. It was a lot of memorization, but I liked it, and I enjoyed it, and I studied really, really hard. I love science. And I was doing good in my classes, pretty good. I was having a little bit of stress with the bipolar. I had to drop some classes, lower my expectations each semester. But then I started at the beginning of algebra, like to take remedial math to go ahead, because I had to take inorganic chemistry. And it sounded really interesting, but I couldn't do algebra. And I went to special labs, and I went to talk to my counselor, and she said, well, you just didn't get the math gene. And so that kind of changed my plans. And I didn't think I could be a teacher with the bipolar. I thought that a classroom setting would be very difficult on a daily basis. And the DRS did not want to pay for me to do fine art, and they said no, they wouldn't do that. And then my family too, they said no, they're not going to do fine art, and they didn't want to put the money into that. They thought that was a waste of money. So I was on my own with a baby, a 5-year-old child, and I had a blind date with this man that was nice. He's 20 years older, but I thought, well, and he said he had resources. He said, I own a house and I have a boat, and I can get you some horses. We could set up a family. And I just couldn't go back to Kent. I was like, this is a failure. I can't go back there and rely on him financially. He didn't make that much money anyway, and I just couldn't do it. It was my ego, maybe, and he hadn't really contacted me since I'd been gone anyway, so I thought he'd probably moved on. And I did love him. I felt a great amount of love and respect for him. But I married this guy named Jerry Minogue, and we got pregnant right away after dating for just a couple months. And I went to visit Jerry up in his home in Maryland and stayed in his apartment, and I found out that he was in credit card debt. So I consolidated those and got a reasonable payment, but the bubble had burst that we were going to have money, and we ended up, living paycheck to paycheck, which was very stressful for me, with kids. And we ended up having a son who was beautiful and perfect and just some light of my life, as well as my other two kids. And I was he was an alcoholic, and alcohol and any kind of addiction brings you to manipulation and lies. And so it's difficult to be intimate with him. And I guess he couldn't see it, that maybe he was part of the problem in the marriage. And the reason that I won't say I didn't love him. I did love him, but I just didn't feel connected to him because of the lies. He always wanted to please everybody and had difficult time setting boundaries. And when he knew he wasn't setting a boundary, he wouldn't tell me the truth. And then I was like kind of weird, just scared, weirded out by this, the inability to set boundaries with me, say yes, but he means no. And so, yeah, it was stressful. And then I got pregnant again, even though I had an IUD in. I was maybe thinking about leaving him after the baby was born. But then I ended up staying for 7 years and then getting counseling and things like that. And because of the lack of intimacy, he'd be passive aggressive and dangerously so. And sometimes he'd scare me in the car. He'd ride real close to the car in front, like NASCAR, and like the counselor had told me, I mean, that could have been death. Our whole family could have died, and it really scared me. And I think he had a good heart. I think he just struggled with addiction. So I got out when I could and just pursued the fine art. I was lucky that he had enough money to kind of help put me in an apartment. We had lost our houses and our horses and things like that had made a family. The photos on the wall and the dinners and things like that I liked in having a family. And I did go back to Kent after the separation, and Kent goes, "Well, you're not divorced yet," because he's Mr. Ethics. But he did talk to me, and he said he liked me and things like that. He wrote me a letter, and he had leukemia. But, yeah. So, anyway, that's the story.